The 2021 summit is a collaboration between LIM College and FashionDex.com. This year's sponsors are Tex World New York City and Apparel Sourcing New York City. I would like to invite Nancy Miller to come and welcome you all. Nancy.
Thank you, Monica. I'd like to begin by introducing myself. I'm Nancy Miller. I'm the chair of fashion merchandising and marketing here at LIM College. And it's wonderful to have you all here, both near and far, on behalf of the college, where sustainability is part not only of our curriculum, but part of our core values. It is my honor to kick off the 4th annual Sustainability Summit. Today, we have assembled many thought leaders and agents of change. We have lots of speakers. We have students who are going to be a part of today. And I think you're going to learn and share and converse. So again, I'd like to thank you on behalf of LIM College and FashionDex.
Oh, hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Monica Ricosi, and we are about halfway through the Fashion and Sustainability Summit. The summit is a collaboration of LIM College and FashionDex. Our sponsors are Tex World New York City and Apparel Sourcing New York City. With us, we have Lisa Diegel from Supreme, Katina Boutis from Everlane, Hope Friedman from LIM College, and Marcel Smith from LIM College. If I can have Lisa, you're up first. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa. I work for Supreme. And I thought I'd just take the first couple of minutes to introduce myself and give you a little background on me personally and professionally. So I am originally from Canada. I'm Canadian, and I have First Nations heritage. I'm a member of the Nisga'a tribe in beautiful British Columbia. I began my career in Vancouver in fashion design, and many of my first jobs were design and production related, including one of my first great jobs at Aritzia, which is kind of weird to think of Aritzia now, because when I worked there, they had 8 stores and there were 4 people in the design and production room. So it's kind of crazy just to see how that brand has expanded, and I have some Vancouver pride whenever I walk past one of their stores. I moved to New York City in 2006, and I got a job at Ralph Lauren. And this is really where I was introduced to brand responsibility. Though back then in 2006, it wasn't called that. It was called testing and managing fabric liability. But it was a really great experience, and it really started, you know, my path towards really wanting to work for a sustainable brand and a responsible brand. I continued to work in chemicals and materials at Marc Jacobs, which I love that brand, and was really so happy to get a job working for Marc Jacobs and for their parent company LVMH. I was a fabric manager to start, but then I was very lucky to start working with the sustainability manager there, and eventually moved into her role in 2017. So in 2017, I became the manager of sustainability at Marc Jacobs. And for about 3.5 years, I worked on their sustainability initiatives, which, I'm very proud of the work that I was able to do there in supplier responsibility and in material management. So that brings me to my next slide. In September of 2020, I got a new job at Supreme. I'm sure everybody knows who Supreme is, but in case you don't, in April of 1994, Supreme opened their doors on Lafayette Street in downtown Manhattan. and became the home of New York City skate culture. As it expanded from a downtown institution into a global community, Supreme established itself as a brand known for quality, style, and authenticity of its apparel and accessory collections. So I just wanted to give you guys a little snapshot of what Supreme does. Obviously, we do a lot of apparel, men's apparel, but of course, everyone wears it. From t-shirts and sweatshirts to beanies and outerwear. We also do skateboards and footwear. And I guess another key and really important part of our business is our very high profile collaborations that we do with Nike, Timberland, TNF, the North Face. And then also we do a lot of accessories. So, you know, kind of unique and strange products that are branded with the Supreme logo, like the infamous brick. I think there was a motorcycle, there have been bottle openers, bike locks, various tools. So always a lot of exciting and new products to work with. Next slide, please. So I started in September of 2020, and a couple months later in December, Supreme was acquired by VF. I didn't know, I don't know if they knew when I was hired, they probably did, but I didn't know until it happened. So you know, my role there as the sustainability director of sustainability to set up a sustainability program really shifted then into integrating Supreme into our new parent company sustainability program. So we were acquired by VF, and as you can see here, VF has many different brands. And I would say, you know, we had worked with a lot of these brands already. Timberland, North Face, Vans, we do collaborations with them. So there was some knowledge of what VF was and what they stood for and all of their programs and processes. But now we are officially under the umbrella and you know, looking to integrate into this program. So there's actually a little video, a 1-minute video here. Can we just quickly play that? It's sort of an introduction to VF's program.
Some of us are creators who see an urban jungle as a playground where imagination can run wild. Some of us are explorers who climb mountains and move them. Some of us are makers, taking pride in doing things right. Together we are passionate about the change we make and the impact we have. It's why we work so well together. One community, using our skills, experience, and unparalleled scale to preserve the world and to make it a better place so that future generations can do the same. In our fast-changing world, brands must step up to the mark. It's why we're leading the way, powering movements to inspire each and every one of us to live sustainable and active lifestyles for the betterment of people and our planet. At VF, we are made for change.
So as I was saying, my job really has been now to integrate into a parent company, and I'm very happy to say that it's a really great parent company that has a lot of sustainability initiatives and has really made a lot of public commitments. They just released their 4th sustainability report on Wednesday. This is basically a snapshot of it. And I will be honest with you, I haven't read it all yet because it's like 90 pages and a lot, but it's basically my subway reading for the week because I really need to get through this. But it's very exciting for me to read this because this gives me a really great picture of where Supreme will be going in the future. We weren't, of course, we were not included in this because we weren't part of the organization, but going forward we will be. So this is my new role at Supreme.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Hi, Katina.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. Yeah, so my name is Katina. I am the Director of Sustainability at Everlane, which is a kind of lifestyle brand focusing on basics or essentials. We don't make a lot of trendy clothing or things that are going in and out of style, but we really try to focus on kind of bread and butter, clean lines, beautifully made essentials that you know, both men, women, whomever can enjoy. We do apparel, footwear, and accessories. We are actually celebrating our 10-year anniversary on Monday. So we're a fairly young brand, but definitely getting into our more mature kind of teenage to early aught years, which we're really excited about. So I guess I'll do a little bit of background similar to what Lisa did. My background in education is really in environmental science and sustainability science. So I kind of came into the fashion world from a very different background and a really technical background built around climate change and climate science. And I worked in the nonprofit sector for a number of years before really having a couple of realizations that I wanted to take a lot of that knowledge and kind of theory and research and implement it into practice. And I wanted to find my way into the private sector. And I've always been really passionate and excited about fashion and clothing and really feeling like fashion influences culture, which it absolutely does. And being able to kind of influence a more responsible, sustainable, progressive kind of agenda from that lens of through fashion and through culture, I think is really important and really exciting to me. So I've had a number of experiences in my past, but now I'm here at Everlane, which I'm really, really excited to tell y'all a bit about. So Everlane has, I said we started about 10 years ago, really on the premise of transparency. And that's kind of been a through line throughout our history and still remains kind of true to the way that we frame and the way that we think about a lot of the programs that we want to put in place today. So it all started with pricing transparency. We were the first, if not one of the first, to really show granular details about the costing of all of our products. Over time, that kind of iterated into factory transparency. And once again, we were one of the early brands that were not just telling our customers and our stakeholders who we were working with, but also showing photos and videos sometimes of inside the factory floor. So fast forward today, that is much more commonplace. There are many brands and companies that are already doing this. But that's just kind of just to say that that's a really kind of commonality and common thread through much of the work that we're doing. So today we actually have a mission that's built around sustainability and environmental activism. And so that's something that you'll see kind of moving forward. We haven't officially unveiled this publicly yet, so this is a lot of behind the scenes. But this is all really kind of exciting work. So whenever we're thinking about our sustainability programs, it's really integrated into our core mission and values of the company. We're thinking about this through three primary lenses. The first is keep Earth cool, the second is keep Earth clean, and the third is making opportunities to give back. And that kind of has, it runs the expanse of both internally within our team and our functions, but also within our supply chain and how we're approaching social impact and human rights work within the supply chain that we're working with, but also reaching out to our customers. So how our customers can help get involved. We have a very passionate group of customers. So within Keep Earth Cool, we actually have some really exciting programs that we recently have been unveiling in kind of a continuous way. We are really passionate and really buckling down to try to help solve the climate crisis. We know that this is the biggest issue of our times. We know that we play a fairly small role in the overall global greenhouse gas emissions, but we also know that we need to do something, and we think that we can help. So we've gone through an extensive 2-year analysis of our global greenhouse gas footprint, or our carbon footprint, as it's often referred to. And we've actually gone so far as to set science-based targets. So we have been approved for a scientifically based 10-year greenhouse gas reduction goal. And so that's really what's driving a lot of our work from a top level kind of umbrella of all the work that we're doing is really around this major climate change mitigation goal that we're working towards. So we've done the math, we know what we need to do. We know that our biggest impacts lie in raw materials, and the issues of waste and material and circularity. Renewable energy needs to be converted. We have impacts due to logistics, and those are some of our biggest impacts. So we've set these 10-year climate change goals. We're planning to, by 2030 at the latest, we're going to be reducing our per product carbon emissions by 55%. And we're also going to be reducing our absolute emissions from our stores and our offices by 46% through that timeline. We've also gone ahead and set a net zero, committed to a net zero goal as well. The official goal, which is kind of being orchestrated by the United Nations and the Carbon Disclosure Project and Science-Based Targets, a lot of really smart and committed minds. This target is built for 2050, and we would love to get there a lot sooner. We know that we need to get there a lot sooner, but we know that we have to first reduce as much as we can if net zero is ever going to be on the table. So this is where our Keep It Cool part of our initiatives come in. Our second is around Keep It Clean. So this is really where some of the more specific integrations and interpretations of our product and our materials are actually coming into play. So this is really built around innovative materials and products, clean chemistry in the dyeing and processing, and once again, kind of bringing us home back to our roots with transparency, and really leveraging and building on the work that we've already done, and hopefully one day again being a real leader in this space. So we have a couple of big goals that we're working towards around Keep It Clean, our Keep It Clean initiative. The first is no new plastic. So in 2018, we set a goal of removing virgin plastics from our product and our supply chain by the end of 2021. It's a very broad goal because it doesn't just include polyester and nylon. It also includes our trims and components and our footwear, little tiny pieces that kind of make sure that your shoes stand up and are durable. And it also includes elastane. So we, at this point, are about 90% of the way to our goal. And we know that we're not going to reach our goal by the end of the deadline, which is by the end of this year. We've been pretty open and honest about that. And we also know that we may never reach the end of this goal because plastics really are so prevalent, particularly in things like spandex stretch content, and just the durability of things like buttons. So this is an area where we will continue to work. We've become kind of obsessed with this, and we're not going to let it go. So we're going to keep talking about it, keep doing it, keep working with our supply chain partners and other innovators in the industry to really try to bring some solutions to the industry. Our second big initiative is around organic cotton. So last year in 2020, we committed publicly to transitioning all of our conventional cotton sources to organic by the end of 2023. We are now about 60% of the way there after just a year and a half time. So we're really excited about this goal. Cotton makes up over 70% of our chief value materials. And so whenever we're thinking about prioritizing and biggest impacts and levers that we can pull, organic cotton is a really big one for the health of the people and the local ecosystems in our supply chain where we operate. And then I also have one here on clean denim. We have a couple more initiatives, but I thought denim was a good one to highlight because denim is a very important category to our brand. It's actually our biggest category in terms of sales and production volume. And so we really feel like we have a really cool way to try to influence not just the work that we're doing within our own product streams, but also hopefully educate our customers and kind of continue on this great line of creating really nice fitting denim, durable quality products, but doing so in a continuously better way. And then the opportunities for giving back. So a really big part of this is actually for our supply chain, where we have a really comprehensive social compliance and human rights program for our tier 1 and tier 2 facilities right now. Always trying to kind of work further up our supply chain to map and understand and gain those personal relationships further upstream. And we've been really successful in some ways, but it's no way near fully mapped out. And that's kind of a continuous work in progress. But we do create these additional, hopefully trying to bridge those gaps from our suppliers to our community and our customers through this, kind of like keep it human, give back, all that kind of stuff. So also a little sneak peek here, we are about to launch our next Black Friday fund, which is a really important initiative for the brand that happens around the holidays. Black Friday is whenever we really kind of kick off and do it big. But this year we'll actually be partnering with the Rodale Institute, which is kind of the creator of the regenerative organic certification. They've been doing a lot of work for many decades on organic agriculture research, and most recently have really pioneered this really measurable way of converting to regenerative agriculture. And so this is going to be another big area of opportunity for our company that we really are starting this kind of long-term partnership. We've done a lot of other things, but one thing I'll mention is the Next Collective, which is actually a grant program that we started in kind of on the heels of reaching 90% of our no new plastic goal and realizing that we weren't going to finish our target. And really because of the innovation gaps in the industry. So we created, this is our first ever grant and fellowship program that we've ever done. The applications just closed and we have some really exciting, like roughly 50 really, really good ideas. So unfortunately, not everybody can win the grant, but we feel very encouraged about all of the really wonderful ideas. And we'll have probably 4 to 5 grantees that are announced early in 2022. So we're really excited about that and obviously sharing more of those details and the outcomes over time.
Thank you guys so much, Katina. Lisa, thank you so much. At this point, I'm actually going to introduce Hope and Marcel, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And Katina and Lisa, what you've said already has been very engaging. We have quite a few questions already from the audience, and I want to try and get to everything. But to start off, it's really inspiring to see more companies have sustainable roles, such as yours and within their companies. Could you share just what your responsibilities are, like in a day-to-day way? Katina, we can start with you.
Sure. It's a lot. I'll start with that. So I'm actually the first dedicated sustainability hire that Everlane has ever had. Prior to my joining the team, there was very much kind of a grassroots, bottoms up approach to sustainability. And there was a mentality that really everyone should feel the ownership and we say like be the CEO of our sustainability initiatives. And I think that has kind of created a really interesting type of person who works here and wants to work here, which really makes my job very exciting and really rewarding because everyone really is bought into this whole idea of our mission and what we're doing. So my role actually expands quite expansively across the organization. So I actually sit on the supply chain team, which makes a lot of sense because the majority of the work that I do and that I'm responsible for is supply chain related. So I'm responsible for all of our social impact and environmental responsibility initiatives across our value chain, our operations, our product, including all of the materials and everything that go into making our product and how we make it. That's kind of on one side of the coin. On the other side, I liaise and work very closely with our marketing and creative and PR departments to really make sure that our messaging is accurate, transparent, truthful, educational, kind of inspiring, all of that. So I most heavily focus probably like 80% on the behind the scenes work, and there's never a shortage of work to do. And we really like to set aggressive goals for ourselves, even if it means potentially never reaching them, but still kind of always striving for doing more and being, as progressive as we possibly can be. And then the other side is really working with some of those more externally facing companies who I don't have kind of a design or creative bone in my body, but it's really, really nice to collaborate with them and kind of help them create all the great materials that end up externally facing. So yeah, that's what I do.
That's amazing. And I think we've all heard the adage, if your goals don't frighten you, they're not big enough. So the fact that you guys have been transparent enough to have really big goals and maybe, get 90% of the way there, that's amazing. Lisa, do you mind giving us a little bit of a background about what your day-to-day life looks like?
Yeah, sure. Listening to Katina, it sounds like so much, and I know it really is. The responsibilities are never ending, and it seems like as you plan your day, month, year, the goals just grow and grow, and your responsibilities grow. So I totally relate to everything that you just said. And so for me right now, my two key responsibilities are product stewardship and supplier responsibility. So just making sure all of our products are safe, responsibly made, and compliant for all of our global regions. I'm also implementing the VF sustainability initiatives around materials and suppliers. So right now, my day-to-day work has been really focused on education for our suppliers and communication between Supreme and this whole big organization, this corporation, and really trying to be the middle person to implement and adhere to all of the policies that VF has made commitments to. So it is a lot, and it's growing, but thankfully I can say that I'm taking it bit by bit. So just focusing on product stewardship, like Katina said, working on materials, and then supplier responsibility, which I think is always such a really key important thing, and was actually the first thing that I did when I started working at Supreme, was just sit down, map out the supply chain, figure out where the risks are, what we had to do, and just really get familiar with the business, which actually took a really long time. So like any new job, it's hard to figure out who everyone is, what they do, where is everything. And I'd have to admit, even after a year, I'm still really figuring all of that stuff out. I sit on the production team, which is a bit unusual for me because at Marc Jacobs, I was actually on the legal team. So I was surrounded by lawyers previously, and now I'm surrounded by PD managers and production people, which is kind of goes back to my roots into, you know, the original interest I had in fashion. But I think also having that legal, you know, that sort of experience to work on the legal side of compliance and sustainability was also very helpful, especially, you know, going through an acquisition and, you know, what's happening politically within the company. And it's been helpful. So yeah, that's sort of what I've been doing lately.
And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that sustainability and the policies that relate to sustainability are so broad, and there are so many different things that we're trying to adhere to. So I'm wondering, how does your company view sustainability? Like, what is it that you are currently trying to tackle? Lisa, sorry.
Oh, okay. So thankfully, because of VF, we are absolutely committed to sustainability, and it is a must-have. It's, you know, we're still in the very early stages, but we have to make these commitments. You know, it's a mandate. So I think that everyone, for people that have worked for small companies and big companies, there's often a difference in mandate. You know, sometimes sustainability is just a nice thing to have, or it's voluntary. And, you know, in my previous role, not everything was mandated, but I really like it. I like that there's somebody saying, this is what we need to do, and this is how we're going to do it. So I would say that we're very committed to sustainability.
And Katina, I'm going to pose the same question to you. How does your company view sustainability?
Yeah, so as I just shared in those slides, we actually just unveiled this kind of new company mission just earlier this week, actually. So officially, sustainability is now ingrained in our mission and kind of motto statement and company values. So we're really taking it from just like this passion project that we want to be part of to actually integrating it into our business decisions. And so for the next couple of months, we're actually going through exercises to integrate sustainability KPIs into across the board, across all of our teams. Everybody has a part to play. So actually ingraining this into our quarterly goals and our functional roles as an organization. So we're kind of growing up in that way and kind of legitimizing this work a little bit more. And I think that's really stemming from some of these big overarching complex goals that we're making for ourselves. You know, like if we're truly going to reduce our carbon emissions impacts, we all have to be holding hands and we all have to be accountable, because it can't just come from, you know, the logistics team, quite frankly, or, you know, any one team. We really all have to be aligned and kind of in it together. So it really is, and I'm very excited to be kind of part of this evolution where we are legitimizing and building it into our core competencies and business practices. But we kind of think about it across a number of ways. So first, I think, is like the social impact and transparency piece, and that mostly has to do with our supply chain impacts and how we're approaching compliance and auditing and long-term partnerships, who we choose to work with and why, and kind of fostering those relationships over time. Obviously, climate change mitigation is probably the other equally biggest and most important to our values and how we're approaching this work. But then we have the work around ecosystem protection and kind of biodiversity and renewal. And again, those are much more supply chain driven and kind of fit nicely into the former two. And then we also have kind of core goals around circularity and innovation. So really trying to take the work of all the great kind of product development and material sourcing that we already feel like we do pretty well, and thinking about it through that extended life phase of longevity and repair and take back and recycling. So we're thinking about this over a long term, like 10 years, which, only kind of coming up on our 10-year birthday anniversary. It's kind of a funny thing to start thinking about the next 10 years. And it's definitely been a mindset shift for a lot of us in the organization, but it's really kind of exciting to be thinking about it so long term.
Well, thank you for that. I think, Katina, you pretty much preempted the next question. It's a good segue into kind of the KPIs and measurable goals. I know you talked a lot about that, but just to kind of state the question. So I'd love to hear from you both, and I'm going to go down to Lisa, kind of pivot. I'm going to circle back with a little bit of a different question, but what are some of the measurable initiatives that you're putting into practice to meet your sustainability goals? And I guess, Lisa, and this actually kind of came up in the chat question too. Now that you're integrating into VF, a huge corporation going from a small, kind of a small independent company into this larger, multi-brand house of portfolio, how are you looking to measure your sustainability, and kind of how are you finding that path and that evolution kind of becoming part of a parent company?
Yeah, well, as I said, it's for me in my role, I find it very, it makes my job easier because one of the things that I think sustainability managers can really struggle with is just influencing and convincing everyone to get on your side and to get behind the projects that you're working with. So I really feel like being part of a bigger parent company like VF really saves me a lot of emotional labor of trying to convince a certain person to do something, and then another department to come in on it. So I'm very happy to be part of it, and I can share a couple of the goals that VF just released this week, actually on Tuesday, and sort of how Supreme is going to work on those goals. So they basically released 12 new goals in the areas of people, planet, and product. And the one for people is that they have a goal to improve those of 1 million workers and their communities by 2025 and 2 million by 2030. So we are working on integrating our suppliers into the worker well-being program, which includes worker rights commitments that promote dignity and equal opportunities across the supply chain. And that is of course a huge job, but we are, I'm personally really, focused on that one. And I think it will be great for the brand. Under planet, so VF also has science-based targets, and they've committed to reduce scope 1 and 2 emissions by 55% by 2030, based on 2017 baseline, and also to reduce scope 3 emissions by 30% by 2030. So yeah, that 10-year goal is, I think, across a lot of brands where we're all already thinking of 2030. And actually it's a bit frightening because 2022 is right around the corner, and really that's only 8 years away. So I think everybody working in this industry that has these goals by 2030 is like, okay, we need to get working really hard on all of these things. So for Supreme, this means measuring. We have to measure, and work on gathering data from our facilities, our DCs, logistics. So we're enhancing our energy use, we're sourcing renewable energy, and transitioning from air to rail and ground whenever possible. So even just making some small changes is kind of the focus, and we see every little change as a big win because we're just sort of starting on this journey. Regarding product, so VF has a goal to eliminate or restrict unwanted chemical chemicals or substance from the supply chain by 2025. And for a lot of active brands, and for us, this includes PFCs, perfluorocarbons, which are used in a lot of fabric coatings for like technical nylon jackets and all of that stuff. So that's something that sort of applies to us, and we need to work on that and are actively doing that. And then also, you know, we've been adopting policies around materials, such as VF has an animal derived materials policy. So no fur, and certifications on wool and mohair, which, you know, I've started working on, and I'll continue to work on sustainable materials, and then, you know, start working on packaging and just overall traceability.
That's great. I think, you know, you said, you know, obviously measurement, you have to manage, you have to measure, right? That's been a big thing. And I think it's probably Katina could attest to. I mean, the nonprofits are asking for this. I mean, there's just so much thrust about measurement. I know we could have a long conversation about what the right reporting is and the frameworks used and all that. But I love that you talked about that. And I love that you were able to give us concrete specifics under people, planet, and product. And I do want to kind of take that, kind of combine the last two questions to Katina, because you talked very clearly about your concrete goals, which is thank you. So that's great. You know, kind of what you're doing from a keep it clean, keep it cool planet, people perspective. I'm just curious in terms of sustainability, are there concrete goals that you have? And I want to say DE&I, but obviously you can define it however you want in terms of diversity, equity, inclusion. I know you've got the, you know, the farming, the 1 acre program with farmers, but in terms of people, are there actual specific goals around that you're measuring to integrate into sustainability plans or are?
Yeah, definitely. And there's kind of multiple parts around this. I think first, and what I work most closely on, is our supply chain kind of social impact goals. So we have a long history of working with third-party firms to really help us develop kind of our goals. First of all, our auditing procedures, and then also our goals for what we're trying to work towards within our manufacturing and supplier communities. So we have a number of years of data and information, and we've been able to leverage the tools from our partners like Elevate, which is a pretty major social auditing firm, as well as Intertech, and this kind of more boutique firm called Arch Advisors that we utilize for kind of like special projects within our supply chain. So we have a lot of the data for the information that we are trying to work towards. And so we're setting goals really for like the next 5 years in particular around things like worker wages, transparency in communications and kind of information within our supplier base, gender equity and payments, particularly around gender. So we have a number of goals like supply chain facing for people that we're working towards, and we're going to be establishing partnerships and working with some NGOs and nonprofits that are really experts in these fields and have expertise within country or within region to help us reach those. So that's probably the biggest part of some of our goals on the social and people side that we're working towards. Transparency also plays a really big part in that. So one of the goals that we want to reach is really this traceability of all of our materials. And I mentioned that we've been able to go all the way back to the farm or to the raw material processor or producer in some instances. So we have some pretty granular and ultra traceable information around some of our cashmere and wool and organic cotton and some recycled polymers. But we really need, and this is true as an industry, we don't really have the technology in place or the background and history to kind of do this in a really comprehensive and fast way. So we have some goals around that we think are going to really strengthen our ability to leverage like all of the great learnings that we have as far as social impact is concerned. So we're really looking forward to that work, but we know that it's going to be kind of a process and a work in progress over the next few years. But then aside from that, we also have some people goals sort of within our internal teams. And those are actually built into our overarching sustainability plan, but they are more closely owned by the people team. So we have kind of goals around diversity and inclusion in hiring practices, for instance. We also are building in sustainability kind of content within our hiring practices as well to kind of really make sure that the people we're bringing into our organization are mission and values aligned. And yeah, we have similar, I think, goals around like management practices and hiring, as well as board additions and things like that. So we actually, I'm sorry, I don't know enough about this. I should know the more specifics of our goals, but we actually have a website on our, or a link on our website, a little page that kind of tells all about it. So I can find that and share it in the chat if people are interested. It's really great work. It's just not an area that I specifically own. But yeah, I'll find it and I'll put it in the chat to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, no, you gave I think a really comprehensive, and kudos to both of you, because as I think Lisa picked up on, this is not easy work. I consider it like pushing a rock up a hill. But what's interesting about both of your companies is that you're going through an evolution, and obviously, you know, Supreme was bought basically integrating during a very uncertain time during a pandemic. Everlane is kind of seems to be really hitting the ground running and really kind of pushing out all of its initiatives across a lot of different focus areas, which I think is fantastic. What are some of the kind of aha moments or lessons learned? I know you each have different tenures at your respective companies, but what are kind of some lessons learned as you've been kind of going through this, you know, this tremendous 18 months of such uncertainty? Anything that you could point to, you know, one example or maybe for each of you?
I would say for me, when I first started, I started during the pandemic in September 2020. So we were still in this sort of lockdown kind of, and I was really in awe and amazed at how quickly our customer adapted to an online way of shopping. Because as you know, Supreme, you know, have these beautiful, amazing stores that people line up for hours to just get in. Yes. So I think for me, I was just like, oh, wow, that's really amazing and interesting that they just adapted to that so easy and so quickly. And I think that is something that has contributed to the success of the company is that customer.
Katina? Thank you.
I would say for me, so I also I don't think I shared when I joined. I just joined the company in February of this year. So also still during lockdown. Thankfully, things are a little bit better now. But yeah, I think one of my biggest aha moments, I mentioned kind of the expansiveness of our no new plastic goal. And you know, how we kind of defined initially, long before I joined the team, what this goal was going to entail. And I think some of my moments of like real clarity and understanding have come in this almost like head-to-head butting of like how you define very specific goals, which I think can be really important, especially if you want to obtain your goals. So for instance, if we would have just made a goal on converting all of our polyester and nylon, we would have reached our goal already. And we would have been able to say, great, we made it 100%. But is that really, I mean, certainly it's worth celebrating. I'm not going to say that it's not, because it's definitely a feat in and of itself. And it's an important accomplishment. But had we not kind of left the door wide open, we wouldn't really be able to be having these kind of really innovative conversations around closing the gaps and figuring out what biopolymers we can utilize, or strength and durability testing, kind of pushing the limits of recycled content in certain trims and components. So it kind of took me away from like my scientific mind of like wanting to really clearly define a lot of things and being able to kind of set goals that are achievable, and time bound, to thinking about things much more, creatively and expansively, and just, sometimes you need to put something out there and really just see if you can chase it. And I don't mean that in like a reckless way whatsoever, but like, I think there are a lot of these instances where I don't know if the industry, kind of more broadly speaking, is thinking about the solutions to the problems in a way that can like help us expand our reach and expand our levels of creativity. So that's been a really nice kind of evolution in my own personal and professional way of working and thinking as well.
Thank you. I'm going to just kind of answer. There's a question in the chat I want to get to because Lisa mentioned it, and I want to make sure. I think it's a good timing to ask that. Definitely have a lot of fans of each of the brands and people here. But question is for Lisa from Luciano. Do you see the core consumer growing with Supreme under the VF umbrella? And also, of course, there's always a question about expanding to teens. And
yes, I saw that one. I definitely think it will expand our customer. Being part of this bigger group and just being able to grow and develop in a very responsible way. Our customer is actually very diverse already, and it spans, ages, genders, everything. And I think that's also a key to its success. But I think that being part of this bigger group can only help. And then with regards to the team, yes, it's only me right now, but I definitely will need more people, and there will definitely be a plan to grow. The nice part about my job, even though I'm a one-woman warrior right now, I have this whole gigantic global team behind me, but definitely the team will grow eventually.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I'm going to turn over to Marcel for additional questions.
Yeah, so as Professor Friedman said, we do have a lot of questions from the audience. And one question in particular was similar to a question that I had. And we've spoken a lot about you guys' supply chain and manufacturers and working with them. So Julia asked, are manufacturers complying with you guys' new initiatives, or are you finding them not wanting them to comply? How do you convince them to work with you?
I would say it's still a work in progress for a couple of reasons. I think our tier one manufacturing, so for our finished goods suppliers, we have been working with a lot of the same suppliers for a number of years now. And so part of the reason why we chose some of them was actually for their sustainability stories and commitments, which they had in place long before we even kind of got up to speed as a brand. So those relationships are quite easy. In fact, like we kind of push each other, and they're very kind of cutting edge and innovative. And it's part of the reasons why we love them and why we've been working with them for, 5+. I think one manufacturer that we've actually been working with for 9 years. So tier one is a little bit easier. As we work our way up the supply chain into tier two and then to the spinning units, it gets a little bit more challenging. So we also have some key suppliers in the mill base that are very well aligned and again are kind of like almost pushing us more than we're pushing them sometimes, which is great. And it makes for a really fun and interesting partnership and relationship. But particularly, and we're a fairly small brand anyway, but as we work our way up our supply chain, you can imagine in spinning mills and in wovens or knit manufacturing units, we've become a very, very small percentage of their overall footprint. So the demand or the influence that we can kind of wield really starts to diminish. So one of the exciting things that I'm really looking forward to doing and being more involved in is trying to form these like cross-industry partnerships, potentially with some of our competitors, but hopefully with more of our friends in the business of just, banding together and really trying to push and influence better practices, both socially and environmentally, that we know we're going to have to do in order to reach some of these big lofty goals that we know that we need to be working towards. So similar to how we're approaching, for instance, our climate mitigation goals internally, where everybody has to kind of hold hands to reach those goals. We also know that we need our manufacturing partners to kind of set these similar goals for themselves and work towards them if we're going to make a dent in the climate crisis. So I think there's more here in terms of cooperation and collaboration than there is in competition. And I think that a lot of brands are coming around to that. And there's certainly some great industry organizations and work that's happening behind the scenes to try to make this happen. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, but I'm very actually hopeful on that front for the future.
And Lisa, same question to you. I think you'd have a little bit of a different take on this, considering that you have your new parent company. So how do you work with your suppliers and manufacturers to be more sustainable?
I'd say in my experience, because I actually worked in production a lot of my earlier years, suppliers often want to change. They want to do the right thing. They want to be that supplier, and it just takes some incentive, or it takes something to really get them to do the work that maybe they already want to do. So I've noticed with our suppliers that they want to keep working with Supreme, of course, and they want to do the right thing. As Katina said, that we have suppliers that have been with us for a long time, and they want to continue to work with us. So I think that they are generally open to making the changes that they need to do if there are changes. And of course, if there are unacceptable practices that would prevent someone from working with us, then we would stop the relationship. But so far, we've just been sort of bringing our suppliers along and teaching them, and it's been very positive, I think, for everybody.
Has the pandemic had any kind of obstacles or challenges surface in regards to your supply chain and working with your manufacturers?
Yes. I think that all brands, I've just talked with a lot of my friends from different brands, and I think because of the global supply chain, COVID is still an issue in a lot of parts of the world, and there are definitely full factory closures in some areas, and definitely delays in production still. So I feel like we are all, the only comfort is that we're all in this together, and we all are kind of having the same issues, but it's definitely very disruptive.
Katina, have you experienced similar issues?
I'll say yes, and to everything that that Lisa just mentioned. I think an additional challenge that I've really been experiencing and that we've been feeling is in the organic cotton space. And I think it's stemming from a lot of different areas, partly COVID, partly just global geopolitical issues. And it's impacting cotton. It's impacting a lot of raw materials. Actually, we're seeing skyrocketing prices across a number of materials. That's really unprecedented at this time. But particularly whenever we're in the middle of trying to transition all of our conventional to organic sources, we're finding that it's really challenging, particularly in places like India, which is still kind of struggling and grappling with the COVID. and other supply chain disruptions. And, that's the world's largest producer of organic cotton. So we've seen kind of supply and demand and other supply chain kind of impacts really impacting this particular raw material really severely. So it's kind of making us think a little bit more strategically and perhaps more distributed in terms of our global kind of organic cotton priorities and way that we're going to reach this goal. So yeah, it's been an interesting ride, and it still continues to this day. So it's still happening. We might not feel it in places like New York and San Francisco as much, but COVID is still very much impacting much of the rest of the world.
I see that we're narrowing down on time here, and I could talk to you both forever. This has been an amazing conversation. So I'm going to ask one final question before I hand over to Professor Friedman and any other audience questions that we may have. But my question is more about the customers and their interest. And who do you feel is having more influence when it comes to sustainable initiatives? Is it coming from the customers and their demand for sustainability and transparency? Or is it more coming from investors or other stakeholders? Lisa, I'll start with you with this one.
I would say mostly it's coming from the top, from our parent company, and then it's trickling down. But I think that part of our customer base is very young, and I think is becoming more aware of climate change and of all of these things. And so really, it's inevitable that they are going to become more active in wanting responsible brands. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like that's happening fast enough for anyone that works in sustainability. It's like, why isn't every customer demanding these things? And we're just not there yet. But I really think that it's coming from the customers. It's going to start coming. It's just going to become way more important to all of them as time goes on.
Yeah, for me, I think most of the pressures are all internal, and I get them from every single level of the company, from the founder and CEO and the chief officers, from like the most entry level retail associates that we have. I mean, it really is a unique position or a unique company to be in, because everybody equally feels very passionate and excited about this topic. And I get more pressure from all of them than I think anyone else, which is great. But it is a little scary at times, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to let my teammates down, but no, that's kind of a joke. But yeah, I think this is also something that our customers, I think, have potentially come to expect from us. So we also get a little bit of pressure from them whenever they feel like we're not doing enough. But for the most part, I think our customers are just kind of like, expecting more from us at this point. So it's a little bit of they're driving some of the progress and some of the changes, but I think they're also really open to just kind of seeing where we go and how we get there. And they ask us for updates all the time. So yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. This has been amazing. And I think an interesting point that I've heard in other webinars and people that I've talked to in this space, and it's a very large space and growing, is that there definitely is a tension between consumers and kind of where they are in the intention versus action gap. But also a big theme, I think, as we both mentioned, is this kind of pre-competitive collaboration. How do you make things happen? How do you get cross-sector cooperation? Obviously, as Katina said, you kind of people, your friends and also your kind of competitors, but there is in other industries like food and beverage, they're doing it. They are doing it. I mean, obviously delivery is different, but I think also there's a lot of probably councils and whatnot. For example, like Island Fisher's been a part of that, definitely about kind of coming together and making things happen quicker and more standardized. Is there anyone want to unmute themselves and ask a question from the audience?
Yes, I have a question.
Great, thank you.
Hi, it's Juliet. Lisa and Katina, thank you so much for your time. The insights you've provided are fabulous, just really interesting information. Thank you so much. The question I had for you is, do you feel that the fashion industry is doing enough in general?
I think they're doing a lot. I mean, in my experience, and I a lot of my friends are in sustainability, like Katina, and I think there are so many initiatives, there are so many groups. We're all, not all of us, but most are really trying, and there are a lot of brands that are really trying. But like I said before, the customers might not quite be there. So no matter what we do, if the customer isn't on board, if there isn't a kind of a societal change in our behaviors, then all that we're doing it's not going to be as impactful. So in my perspective, I think we're doing a lot. Of course we can always do more in the fashion industry I'm talking about, but we also need the customer to change.
I'll echo Lisa, because I do think that there has been a lot of progress. Clearly, we've both been in this business and industry in these specific capacities for quite a while. So I've really had the pleasure of kind of seeing the growth and the opportunity. And there's no shortage of really committed and passionate people in many brands. And I think of them all as like my soulmates across this industry. And so I know that there are folks like us who are working very hard and really trying to push for progress. At the same time, I would actually say, no, I don't think we're doing enough. I don't think that we have done enough up until this point, but I can say that across probably every industry, private sector, public sector. I don't think policy makers have done enough. I don't think, there's a lot, there are many people, many industries who haven't been doing enough. But what I will say also is it seems like we really are at this inflection point. I've been feeling it growing for a while, and I feel like it's finally here. And I think we're seeing some encouraging potential policy changes in Europe. We've got COP26 coming up. Let's see if that does anything. We got to still hold out some hope for our US legislators to do the right thing. But I mean, I think it really seems like this conversation is being pushed more and more to a head, and eventually we're going to have to buckle down and do the work. So I think a lot of that is being driven by many private sector brands and companies right now. And I'm just thankful that we're able to even have these conversations and continue collaborating and sharing and working towards something better.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, that was really interesting. And thank you so much for both of yours incredible, like under the tent perspective. I always love that, it's always nice. And thank you for sharing like the breaking news from both of your companies. It's great to see that. If there's one more question, I'm going to wrap up with the last one. And actually I'm glad that Katina kind of brought us to a more positive note. So, what are you currently, really positive? I mean, what are you optimistic about in terms of your business or retail in general? What kind of gets you excited? And as you said, got to be soulmates in this business, or what kind of keeps you motivated to keep doing what you're doing? What do you see kind of, what is your vision? How do you see your company getting there? Any of the above?
Oh gosh, that's a complex question. I mean, I feel like I've talked about so much of it already. Like if all these things weren't here, I definitely would not be as optimistic and kind of excited about the work ahead, even though I know it's going to be tough, changing hearts and minds and business practices. But I think I'm really excited about just the innovation in the industry. And I mentioned it in the beginning, fashion really does have this ability to change culture and change perspective. And I think that there's really something kind of magical in that, whatever that equation is. And so I'm excited for innovative materials and processes and ways of producing and ways of just, creating new business models and new ways of seeing value. So that's what I'm excited for.
Great, thank you. Lisa?
Yeah, I would agree with that also. And then I guess more specific to me, I think, sometimes I complain about, and I've done this for years, complain about my job and how hard it is, and there's so many challenges and boohoo. But then at the end of the day, I'm like pretty happy that I get to work in sustainability, and really excited to be in this new place where I can make a change. I can take a brand that wasn't doing something before, and maybe now they're doing it. And every little bit counts, and it's exciting and rewarding, and the reason that I wanted to get into sustainability.
Thanks. That's a wonderful note to close that in. I think we're all kind of feeling that and resonating with those sentiments. So thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Katina. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. Lisa, Katina, Hope, and Marcel, thank you for spending and sharing your time and knowledge